Shalom friends, welcome to this Shi'ur in Rambam. I'm Eliyahu Shir, my website www.lovingkindness.co. If you have already subscribed to my channel, I thank you very much. If not, and you enjoy the type of Torah that I teach, and you're looking for some quality Torah, something to give you something to think about, then please do subscribe to my channel right away by clicking on the subscribe button. In addition, if you find that you're enjoying the shiur, please do click on the like button. And once, of course, you subscribed, do click on the bell button to be notified of future shiurim. Okay, so today we're learning Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, great, outstanding Torah giant, teaching us the way of Jewish law, halacha. He lived in the years 1135, 1138 to 1204. And he summarizes for us the entire corpus of Jewish law in 14 wonderful books, altogether called the Yad HaChazakah, the strong hand, or alternatively, the Mishneh Torah. And we're learning from the first section at the moment, the section called Mada, and within that, the laws of Teshuvah, the laws of repentance. As we discussed before, remember, repentance is not what we're used to as just the concept of stopping the bad that we do and getting onto a good path, which of course it is. But in addition to that, the process of repentance is returning back to God. Lashuv, teshuvah. The process is to return back to God. We need to go back to where we come from, and that is by following the Torah and the mitzvahs therein. We're on Perek Gimel, that means chapter 3, and we're on Halacha Aleph. We're starting the chapter today. In our previous lesson, we'd studied things regarding confession on Yom Kippur, even before Yom Kippur, and we spoke about themes like sins between man and his fellow man, and how to get forgiveness from somebody if we've caused them any problems, harmed them in some way, hurt them in some way. And in addition, we took things one step further, and we even spoke about the idea that if we had hurt somebody who had passed on into the next world already, that there is even a way to deal with asking that person for forgiveness. If you'd like to know more, please refer back to that previous shiur. Now, in this shiur, the Rambam is going to take us on a path of what we would call in today's times Musar. Musar means ethical rebuke. Well, of course, ethical rebuke refers to the idea of realizing that when we've gone wrong, there is a path to take to correct ourselves. In today's times, of course, there are a plethora of wonderful books available for those who want to study Musar. Indeed, the word Musar comes from the word Yisurim, meaning Yisur, which refers to afflictions. And the path of Musar is one which indeed speaks about afflictions, whereby we consider where we have gone, where we're going to, and we really, so to speak, give it to ourselves. And we say to ourselves, how can I improve? What do I need to do? Where am I headed? This is the path of Musar. The Rambam is certainly telling us this information on a very low scale, certainly nothing like the later authorities will come to do to us. But for a lot of people, this is vitally important. Of course, for all of us, it's vitally important. But a lot of people really spend time on concentrating on who they are in the world and what they have to do. And this we call growth. I need to grow as a human being. I need books and texts that will teach me where I'm going wrong and how to improve myself. Of course, if you go to your fellow and you ask them how to improve yourselves, you can rest assured that many people will be able to tell you exactly what to do with yourself. They'll tell you exactly what needs to be done if you're looking to improve. But unfortunately, some of those comments are not taken in the spirit that they're given. And overall, it's probably better not to engage in this type of corrective behavior. In fact, if anybody wants to really get onto the path of this rebuke and this reproval and the idea of working on oneself, get yourself a quality book. You can get these books like Mesilat Yesharim, The Path of the Just, The Reishis Chochmah, The Beginning of Wisdom by Rabbi Eliyahu Davidus, quality work which really tells one where one is at. And there are books like Strive for Truth, Michtav Me'Eliyahu, and various other works. Please, if you feel that you'd like a number of sources of works that you could work through yourself and develop and grow with, please be in touch with me. I'll be happy to suggest these books. But now what we're going to do is take almost a real initial view of how the Rambam tells us what we need to do and understand in ourselves, how we need to work on ourselves to get ourselves out of that bad behavior into a better behavior. What do we need to do? How do we view ourselves, etc.? That's what we're going to find in today's lesson. Let's take a look. We're at halacha aleph, the very first halacha. Let's see what the Rambam says. Kol echad ve'echad mibnei ha'adam. Every single person, yesh lo zechuyot ve'avonot. Every person in the world has good things and bad things about them, which means that they engage in good behavior and they earn for themselves rewards. They have zechut, they have merits, they did good, they did the right thing. Va'avonot, and sins. Well, everybody is involved in some sin at some point in time. There isn't anybody in the world who never committed a sin in his entire life. This is ourselves. This is what we go through. Don't beat yourself up if you find that you look at yourself and say, hey, it looks to me like I've got sins. The Rambam tells us we've all got sins. We all need to work on ourselves. Mi shezechu yosav yiseiros al avonosav tzaddik. Now, a person who finds himself in the position where his merits are greater than his sins, he's a tzaddik. Let us be clear. For those who may have encountered the Hasidic work, Tanya, written by the first Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Zalman of Liadi, will encounter the same idea of the Tzaddik and the Beinoni and the Rasha. There is a person who's a Tzaddik, a righteous individual, a Beinoni, a middle individual, and an average type of person, inverted commas, and the Rasha, the evil person. And of course, the definition of Rabbi Zalman of Liadi in terms of who is the Tzaddik and who is the Rasha is a very soul-connecting definition. The Tzaddik is somebody who's super. He is Superman, so to speak, Superman of the spirit. And the Rasha, of course, is actually most people who find themselves really battling against the trials of life. Whereas in the case of the Rambam gives us a straight definition. And the straight definition is as follows. Even though, when you look around, sometimes people say, well, he's a real tzaddik. Or they say, do you know a tzaddik I can go to receive a bracha? Well, in that sense, of course, people are talking about the tzaddik. They're assuming we're speaking about the tzaddik of the Tanya, of the Bala Tanya, somebody who's really super, he's super powered, Superman of the spirit. And he's not really talking about the fellow that we're encountering today. But the Rambam says to us that in general, a person whose good deeds outweigh his bad, he did 51 good and 49 bad, he's called a tzaddik. Tzaddik in the sense of righteousness, that he is a little bit better than he is worse. Umisha avonosav yeseiros al zechu yosav, and somebody whose sins are more than his merits, Rasha, he is the evil fellow, which means to say he has 51 bad things to his name, he has 49 good things to his name. He's been doing well, he gets 49 credits, but unfortunately, there are 51 debits to his name, and therefore we call him a Rasha. Interesting. Mechetza lemechetza, somebody is half-half, 50-50. 50 goods, 50 bad. Beinoni, he is called the middleman. He's an average person, and he is neither on the side tipping the scales onto the side of merit, and he's also not on the side tipping over to the side of demerit, the side of obligation, the side of he's in, let's call it banking terms, he's either in the black or he's in the red. Well, this particular fellow is now in the red. The Rasha was in the red, and the Tzaddik is in the black, and the Beinoni is sitting at a zero balance, basically. Which way will he go? The Chena Medina, the Rambam takes it further. So too, the entire country, not just the individual, the entire country is being judged as to how it behaves as a country. So we think politics is really politics, but the reality is that let us not forget that if the leaders in charge are not directing us correctly, the entire country will reach a point of evil, and that will be pretty damaging. What does that mean? What's going to happen? The entire country If all the good things are of the people who live there, all of its inhabitants are greater al avonosehim upon their bad deeds, upon their sins. Harizot Tzaddikis. This city, the entire country, whatever you want to call it, is a Tzaddikis. It's a righteous country. On the whole, everybody is doing what they should be doing, and they're doing it well. And every now and again, of course, there's some criminal activity that needs to be dealt with. But on the whole, the country is doing okay. But if their sins are more, there's a lot of crime going on. Everybody's involved in crime. Harezor Risha'a. This is an evil city or an evil country, an evil place, an evil neighborhood, whichever direction we're taking it. V'chein kol ha'olam kulo. The Rambam takes it one step further. So too, the entire world in its entirety. Hashem, God, the creator of all of existence, the one God, looks at all his creation as an entity to itself, and he's going to judge all of his creation in one unit. He will judge towns and cities and neighborhoods and so on as one unit. He will judge the individual as one unit. There are many different levels of judgments that are going on here, says the Rambam. Base. Adam, a person, Shavoneisav merubin al yosav, whose sins are greater than his merits. Here is what happens to him. Miyad, immediately, humeis b'risho, he dies in his evil state. The Rambam gives us some harsh musar, so to speak, and he tells us that when a person reaches a point that he is overwhelmed with bad over the good that he's done, well, such an individual will die in his evil state, says the Rambam. Shene'emar, how do we know this? Because the Pasuk speaks about this idea and it says, Al rov avonech, on account of your abundant sin, which means to say that the Navi over there is speaking about the aspect of some prophets who were behaving in a very bad manner, false prophets, and basically they'd reached a peak in the evil that they were doing. And so the Pasuk says, and now they're going to be done away with, basically, on account of the abundant sin that they've been involved in. Once it reached the point that there's nothing more that can be done, sorry, we've reached the end point. We cannot wait any longer. You know, the person is in court and he's done one thing wrong. And the judge says, you know, he sentenced him to 2 weeks in jail. And afterwards he comes out and he does something else wrong, back in court again, same judge. The judge says, I saw you here just a few weeks ago. What's going on? He did this and this. Well, I'm sending you to 6 months. 6 months in prison. Yeah? Wow. Amazing. Okay, he gets out 6 months later. Guess what? Returns back. Eventually, he gets to a point. He sees the judge. The judge says, look, there's nothing more that can be done for you. You've reached your end here. And then, of course, we know the direction that can sometimes happen as a result of this. According to the Rambam, when a person reaches this point where there is no longer any ability to return, he has just gone too far. So then he dies immediately. What does that mean exactly? Immediately? Your guess is as good as mine. Does it mean he dies on that exact moment? He has a heart attack, God forbid. Does it mean he dies a day or two later? He dies in his sleep. Does it mean at the moment he commits the Aveirot, he dies? You know, a flash of lightning, bolt of lightning reaches out and strikes him and he dies. Is that what happens? I'm not quite sure exactly. But the idea is that once he reaches his end point, he is liable for death, and it's going to happen pretty soon. Well, of course, people die even when they're righteous. It doesn't mean to say that they were involved in a sin at that point in time. Everybody's going to die. But the theme is that when he reaches a point of no return, he has reached the end, and he's liable for death, and it's going to happen. Now we're going to see some examples, and the examples are going to help us understand the details a little bit more in particular how it works. So to a country or a state or a neighborhood, whatever we call it, that its sins are more, meaning to say it's now reached its end point of it's got too much. The creator of the universe is not handling this, so to speak, any longer. He will not tolerate this behavior. You've reached your end, says the creator. He overed it. That entire city, neighborhood, country, etc., will be wiped out. Oh, I don't know about that. I've never seen a city just suddenly being destroyed. What are you talking about? Shneimar, because the Pasuk says in Breshis Yud Chet Chaf, talking about the city of Sodom. Everybody knows the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Amorah. What does it say? Za'akas Sodom va'Amorah ki rabba. That the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is very great. And what did God do? He destroyed the entire city. Why did he do that? Well, we know, for example, that the entire city was taken care of. Sodom and Gomorrah was a fantastic place to live. Everybody who lived there had everything that they needed. The best of cars, the best houses, the best clothes. There wasn't a person in the entire city of Sodom that lacked anything. I mean, how much wrong could they do? I mean, they were good guys. They all had everything. They were working hard. They were supporting themselves. They were doing good. Well, the catch is that with all the good that they did, they didn't want to share a thing with anybody else. Somebody would come into the city and say, do you have lodging for me? And they would draw him in and they'd say, certainly, sir, please come through to the torture room. What? And in the torture room, they stretched their bodies, pulled them this way, pulled them that way until eventually they died. What other terrible things they did, who knows? You're welcome in our town, sure. Like, for example, a person who has no interest in anybody else other than himself. That's about how welcome you are in our town. So anybody who needed help, rest assured, he was welcomed in the most terrible manner and he lost his life. If anybody was caught helping anybody, God forbid, somebody in the city should give somebody who needs something to save their life, to help them, then that person would be punished. And the atrocities that they did were too much to even talk about. The torture, etc., was way beyond the norm of any normal human being. That was the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Things were upside down in a city that had everything. Let that be a lesson for ourselves when we're only too quick to criticize anybody who comes to us and asks for help. We have all sorts of excuses. Don't come into my town with an attitude like that. You'll mess up the town. We've got the finest cars here. How dare you come into our neighborhood with that jalopy? You're messing up the town. Look what you're doing to us, insulting us with the type of car you drive. Well, this was the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Couldn't tolerate anybody who had anything less than the very, very best. Well, everybody knows what happened to the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. It was wiped out. It was turned upside down. And so too, Kol ha'olam kulo, the entire world in its entirety. Im hayu avonosehim merubin, mizachu yosehim, if their sins, the whole world, is greater than their good deeds, than their merits, miyad hein nishratin, immediately they will be wiped out. They are, meaning the moment you reach that point, you are wiped out. Because if you've reached a point whereby the entire world has become criminal, then it's going to eat itself up. It will destroy itself. So you say, oh, that's interesting. I never saw the world being destroyed before. Oh, really? Listen to this. Shene'emar, as it says in the verse in the Pasuk in the Torah, Bereshis Vov Hey, everybody knows this when they were in kindergarten, when they were little babies running around. And the kindergarten teachers were teaching them Bible stories. They learned the terrors of what happens to a world that goes off the path. And what does it say there? Vayar Hashem ki rabba ra'as adam. Hashem saw that the evil of man had become just simply too much. It had increased beyond the norm. Everybody in the world had gone topsy-turvy. People were stealing from each other. People were behaving in manners destructive one to the other without any normalcy. An upside down world where there were no longer any rules or any laws. The law was, there is no law. It's 007. Everybody has license to kill. Everybody can do whatever it is that they want to. What a fantastic world. No responsibility. No need to have to consider that there is such a thing as a correct behavior. Everybody does what is righteous and correct in his own eyes. There is no law. There is no God. There is no right way. I behave according to the way I wish to behave, and you can do whatever you want. That's your choice. Imagine such a world. That is the world that the generation of the flood was indeed living in. And so, what did God do? He wiped out the entire world. There wasn't a man around who was normal, who could understand law, who could understand righteousness, who could understand godliness, except, of course, for Noah, from whom the entire world was populated after the flood. And he was the only one who was saved, as we know, from kindergarten. The shekels there. Now, this whole weighing out, how do I know if what I'm doing is good, if it's bad? Do I have more good than bad? Let me do a tally. Like an accountant. He's looking at his good, he's looking at his bad, he sees what the income is, what the expense is, got it all worked out, except for one problem. He has nothing worked out. The shekels there, this whole weighing out. It is not in accordance with the amount of merits and sins. I did 10 good things today and only 5 bad. I am 5 ahead. I am okay. I am a tzaddik. Ella. But rather the calculation goes in this way. Lefi godlam, according to their greatness. You see, sometimes when we do good and we think it's worth nothing, we make a mistake. It's worth a tremendous amount. And sometimes when we do bad and we think it's not really so bad, it's okay. The world still functions. You think it was so bad? I only took $1 from that person. It's not terrible. But we don't know the weight. There's too much in life to base weights upon. $1 from a person who is $1 in debt is stealing not just $1, but an additional $1 of life force that puts him into further debt. Whereas giving $1 of charity to a person who is $1 in debt is a tremendous mitzvah, as we save the person from the debt and the flood of debt money that he is in. They give the dollar to the millionaire, and the value of that dollar is worth far less in terms of its quality to the millionaire than it is to the poor man who has absolutely nothing. Correct? Certainly. So therefore, we don't know the real value because life is too big. People are too big. We don't know the circumstances of every person's life, and we don't know the effect that we have on every person's life. Sometimes the smallest thing we do changes another person's life forever. That can be for good, and that can be for bad. And therefore, since we don't know how to weigh it out, we cannot come at the end of the day with our balance sheet and work out exactly our income and expenses and say, I am a tzaddik. I did 10 good today and only 2 bad. But you know, the 2 bad that might have been done could have been far worse than the effect of the 10 good that was done. So we see everything goes according to the greatness of the mitzvah or the Aveirot. And that we have no clue about. As the Torah teaches us, there are no rewards and punishments mentioned in the Torah for various good deeds and bad deeds. And that is because, were that to be so, what do you think we would be doing with our lives? We would look on the list of top priorities to do today, and we would do those things and those things only. And we never come to do the other mitzvahs. But God wants us to do all sorts of mitzvahs, and he wants it to be free choice. And so therefore he gives us the mitzvahs to be done, and he tells us nothing of their rewards and nothing of their punishment. You take a chance. It's a gamble. Every time you do a mitzvah, who knows? You scored 100 points, or maybe you only scored 1. You did an Aveirah, maybe you scored 100 negative points, maybe you scored only 1. Who knows? Shene'emar, how do we know this? Because the verse in the Torah says in Melachim Aleph, Yud Dalet Yud Gimel, Ya'an, since it is, Nimtza bo davar tov, since there was found in him something of good. Now the story goes over here that there was a king by the name of Jeroboam, and he was in opposition to the king of that time, who was Rechavam. who was the son of Shlomo HaMelech. We know the story that when Shlomo HaMelech died, Rechavam took over the kingship, and he was the son of King Shlomo, the grandson of King David, but he had his own plans of how to run the Jewish people. How was he going to run the country and the Jewish people? And so this fellow Yeroboam, he had his own plans of how to do things, and he swayed 10 of the tribes of the Jewish people onto his side against King Rechavam. Anyway, as time progressed, he had a son, Aviah, and Aviah one day was sick. And Yeroboam didn't know what to do. So his wife said, you know that there is this fellow by the name of Aviah Shiloni. He's a great prophet. And let's go and ask him his advice as to what to do with the son of ours. So anyway, the story goes that even though Rechavam was a bad king, his son Aviah was a good fellow. Rechavam would close off all the gates into Jerusalem, not allowing anybody through to come and serve in the Beis HaMikdash and so on and so forth. And Aviah would come along, and he opened up everything, and he would send the guards away and tell them, listen, stay away from here and let the people come through. He was a good fellow, but he was sick and he was dying. Anyway, the wife of Yeroboam went to speak to Aviah Shiloni, who of course was a very great prophet. And as the story goes, in fact, he was blind towards the end of his life. And he was sitting in his chair in his house one day, and there was a knock on the door. And of course, Aviah, being a prophet, said, let the wife of Rechavam enter. Yeroboam. He said, let the wife of Yeroboam enter. So how did he know such a thing? Of course, he was a prophet. So she comes in. Of course, he knew exactly what the story was. If he knew who was at the door, he already knew what the story was. So he told her, listen, you should know that when you get home, that your son is going to die. But even though he's going to die, he will be the only member of the family who will be mourned. He'll be buried, and he will be mourned. Why? Because there is something good in him. He was a good fellow. He did good. He did well. So we see that even though we don't know all the good that he did, but even this little good that he did in allowing the Jewish people to come through to the Beis HaMikdash, and he pushed aside the guards in spite of his father putting them up there and telling them don't allow anybody through. But because of these acts of kindness that he did, who knows what a tremendous effect this had on the Jewish people and how Hashem saw it. And because of that, he was rewarded, that the Jewish people mourned him, and he was buried in a kosher burial. Everything went well. So we see over here that we don't know the rewards of good deeds. We don't know what we're doing really and the effect that we're having. Let that be a lesson to us. And we don't know the effects of the bad things that we do, often thinking it's not really so bad. I mean, what did I do wrong? I only said such and such. Did I kill that person? That we leave for another time when we'll discuss the laws of Lashon Hara in this chapter of the Rambam. Sometimes we just imagine in our heads that the bad that we do is okay. We just work it all out. We set the mathematical equation up and it all equals fine. Because we misjudge and we judge ourselves subjectively instead of realizing that there's more to life than what we think in our own heads. Sometimes the smallest good achieves the biggest results and is worthwhile. Sometimes the smallest bad can do tremendous damage to people, even though we don't think about it. And this has an effect on others, on ourselves, on the entire world. Now there is a sin. Guess what? Turns out that a person can do a sin that parallels against a number of good things. He does one bad thing, 1 equals 10. But when does 1 ever equal 10? Ask any mathematician. 1 can never equal 10. But when it comes to good deeds and bad deeds, sometimes one sin, although we don't think of it as being too bad, is equal in its quality to 10 bad. Shene'emar, how do we know this? Because the verse says in Kohelet Tet Yud Chet, and one sin can destroy a lot of good. You know, it's that type of idea of when you could be doing anything in your life, where you could, I'll give you an example. Pretend you're a computer programmer. You're busy programming. Everything is working well. And in the middle of the program, there's a bug, a little bit of a problem somewhere. Boom, the whole program doesn't work. So it's just a minor thing. It's kind of like sending off an email. Let's say, for example, the person's email address is Jacob at, and it says, what's it? Jacob dot, let us call him Jacob Cohen, let's say. I'm just taking a random name. Jacob.Cohen is his name. I say Jacob.Cohen at, and I say yahoo.com. Let's just give an example. So anyway, I'm sending this email off, but unfortunately, I don't put Jacob.Cohen. I put Jacob.bcohen at yahoo.com. And where does it go to? It goes somewhere else altogether. That's amazing. I didn't want it to go there. How do I get there? You put the dots in the wrong place. See, that's the danger, that one sin, doing one thing wrong, can affect the whole story. Everything changes because you just put the dots in the wrong place. Everything changes because the bug in the program destroys everything else that's going on. Sort it out. One small thing can cause a major disruption to everything else going on. One Aveirah equals 10 mitzvahs. Now, this whole measurement that takes place is only measured through the mind of the God of all knowledge. The only being that can make judgments on these matters is God. He will decide to what degree the dot went into the wrong place and caused the message to be sent elsewhere. And he knows, and he knows how all of the merits are to be valued against the sins. In other words, at the end of the day, none of us knows exactly how the system works in terms of merits and Aveirahs. Everything is judged by God and God only. Gimel. Now, anybody who regrets the mitzvahs that he did, imagine this, for example. He's flying high. This fellow has 100 good deeds, one bad deed. And one day he turns around and he says, I wasted my life. I could have been earning lots of money. I could have been sailing the seas on my private yacht. I could have got my pilot license, bought myself a Boeing, and flown around the world with my best friends and family on regular holidays with all the money that I was earning. I could have bought myself a garage of 50 of the fanciest sports cars in the world and driven one a day over 50 days. And then again, one a day over the next 50 days again. One every 50 days. We keep changing. Day number one, car one. Day number two, car two. What am I going to drive today? Today it's the Land Rover. Yes, tomorrow it's the Ferrari. Next day I'm bored of that. Let's do Lamborghini. And each day I could have just done all these things. I could have had a blast. I could have really enjoyed life. But you know what I did? I gave myself over to studying Torah and fulfilling mitzvahs. I was davening 3 times a day. I was getting up to do tikkun chatzot every single night, crying over the Shekhinah in exile. I went to the mikveh every single day. It was Shabbos every 7 days and all the festivals. And I was busy preparing for the festivals. I was putting tefillin on. I was wearing my tzitzit. I was focused on studying Torah. I needed to get through Shas, all the Poiskim. I needed to study the Midrash and the Zohar and the Kitvei Ari. There was so much going on. And I gave myself over to all these things. I just didn't have any time to immerse myself in the physical world. And I turn around and I say, woe to me that I wasted my life on all these things. And where did it get me? When a person regrets all the good that he did, and the fact that the Rambam is telling us this is a sure sign that this is how people sometimes feel. Well, when we feel that way, we have to try to control ourselves. And we have to say, but the good that I've done is still good. I still maintain that I did the right thing. I might have given up that physical life. And I know that I was a good businessman at one point in my life. And I could have achieved huge strides in the world. But I gave it up for the sake of Torah and mitzvahs. Don't turn around and regret the path that you were on. You were on the right path. You were doing well. Don't be so hard on yourself. So a person who regrets all these mitzvahs that he did, v'taha ala zechuyot, he regrets it all. Oh, do I really regret doing those things every day, 3 times a day? I was davening with the minyan. Can you believe it? What a waste. You used to travel to shul and back. It took me 20 minutes into shul, 20 minutes to get back again. What a waste of my time. I could have been earning big bucks. And he says in his heart, what has this helped me? I did all these things. Does anybody care? You think anybody goes around town telling people, hey, he davens in shul 3 times a day with a minyan? Whoa, wow. He's such a wonderful fellow. He's really made a change in this community. He's changed the whole world. People don't talk that way. And usually people talk big when it comes to money matters, physical matters, kashmiot, the physicality. Rukniot, people aren't so excited to speak about it, generally speaking. Certainly not for the average person. He finished just a big deal. So he finished learning the Talmud. He did all the pages, 2,711 pages. He went through them. Fantastic. Hey, guys, it's time for Mincha. It's over and done with. Nobody cares. And he says to himself, well, what did I really achieve? Where did I go with all this? What have I done with my life? What have I achieved? Everybody reads books, so I read these books. What have I achieved more so than anybody else? And he regrets it. If only I hadn't done them, he says out loud. He loses the lot. His comment causes him to lose it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You did well. You did the right thing. Don't stop yourself now. Don't destroy what you already did. You've achieved. And when he dies, no mention will be made of all the good that he did. If he really regrets it, he's not worth it. You should be proud of it. Be proud of the good that you do. Nobody else sees it. Nobody else cares. Who cares? But you did the good. You know that you did the good. Be proud of it. Never regret it. So you could have earned $1 million at that point in time, but you got stuck and you helped somebody with something else. Somebody who was traffic, you were stuck in the traffic and somebody needed help. You got out your car, you helped them. You lost the business deal because you were late now. Who knows what happened? You got a whole story going on. You start complaining, etc. Wow, well, I should have done this. I should have done. I would have got the deal. No, I lost the deal. Forget it. You were involved in good things. Be proud of it. How do we know this? Remember what we said? Whenever the poskim are talking, we need proof. Those codifiers of halakha, of Jewish law, they tell us what to do and how to do, but tell me what the proof is. Where do you get all this information from? Because it says, Shene'emar Pasuk in Yechezkel, Lamed Gimel Yud Beis, V'tzidkas HaTzadik, that the righteousness of the righteous person, Lo Tatzilenu B'yom Rishon, it will not help him on the day of his evil, which means to say, if he's involved in evil, on that day that he's involved in evil, his righteousness is not, what's the evil? He regretted doing the good. He was a tzaddik, and he regretted the good that he did. On that day, he will no longer be saved. All of this only applies when he regrets the first things that he did. If you don't regret it, in the sense of that you go through life and you just feel like, well, I've put in my best effort, etc., well and good. But once we regret, that's where the problem comes in. And just as it is that they weigh out for him in the next world all of his merits, a person's merits and his sins, at the time that he dies, guess what? Every single year, so too. They weigh out for a person, which means in the courts above, just as there are courts below, there are courts above. God has designed the physical world to be as a parallel to the spiritual world. Once we see what's going on in the physical world, we can apply ourselves and understand that a similar behavior takes place in the spiritual worlds. In this world, there are courts of justice. In the next world, there are courts of justice. How often are the courts judging us? Well, we will learn later at some point in time that the courts are really judging us every day. Every moment of the day, we are being judged. But for those of us who can't quite get our heads around this idea of being judged every moment of the day, it's a little bit too much to be imagining that somebody is by some TV screen watching us, so to speak, 24 hours a day, our every action. It's, good, you did good. Yes, we're putting it onto the records. Immediately judgment takes place for the good. You did bad, immediately judgment takes place. We can't imagine such things, but this is for sure certain, that every single year, these good deeds and bad are weighed out. So or every single year, they weigh out a person's bad. The bad that he does is weighed out against the good. Now listen to what he said. He said, Kol echad ve'echad miba'ei ha'olam. Every single person in the world. He did not say every Jew. He said every single person in the world is being judged every year. This is what we brought in the previous shiur. Im zechuyotav. B'yom tov shel Rosh Hashanah. And all of this occurs on the festival of the day of Rosh Hashanah. Every single person in the world is being judged on Rosh Hashanah, and therefore it is in the best interest, not just for the Jew, but in the best interest of the non-Jew too, the nations of the world, to engage regularly in a process of repentance whereby they realize the importance of returning back to the one God and the importance of getting their own lives in order, seeing where they've gone wrong and hurt others, hurt themselves and not done what they should have, and seeing the good that they did too, and working it out on their own balance sheet and doing the best that they can, and also regretting the past and feeling bad about it and moving ahead to do good in the future. Everybody should do this, because on Rosh Hashanah, this is Judgment Day with a capital J, as far as things are concerned in this world. Now, Misha Nimtza Tzaddik, a person who's found to be a Tzaddik, in the sense of the Rambam's definition of Tzaddik, of course, we're not talking about a person now who is a spiritual being who lives in the physical world, a concept of the Tanya, Rabbi Shmuel of the Adi teaching us the concept of the Tzaddik, of the righteous individual. We're talking about the average person whose good deeds outweigh the bad deeds. So if he's found to be a tzaddik, then the din is nechtam l'chayim. He's immediately judged for life. All is well, everything happens perfectly on Rosh Hashanah. Boom, the seal takes place. He is okay, he's done well. Umisha nimtza Rasha, a person who's found to be an evil person, nechtam l'misa. He is judged for death. There's no going back now. If there's just too much going on the side of bad, he's going to be judged on the side of death. Let us be careful in understanding when the Rambam, when the Gomorrah is telling us the ideas of being judged for life and death. We know only too well many great righteous individuals die during the year. It's an amazing thing. But everybody dies, righteous or evil. We all die. And therefore, if somebody is righteous and they die in the middle of the year, what are we to say? It must be that he was judged that at the beginning of the year he was a Rasha, and that's why he died. Well, if we had that mentality, we could possibly say that the righteous individual could live for 1,000 years and more. And the wicked person shouldn't live past, the first year that he involves himself in wickedness. We see people who are wicked, they live for 100 years even. Life goes on well for them sometimes. So what is he talking about? Well, if we don't want to understand this on the literal level, we can also understand it on a more figurative level. And for sure, this is something that we can consider. And that is that when a person involves himself in good things, then there is blessing for him in the year to come. When he involves himself in bad things, he is more liable to put himself into a position of a future of bad energy. And that is what's going to come into the world. When he is good, he's judged for life. It means the flow of his life is a life worth living. He's moving ahead in good things. I didn't say that maybe he won't bang his finger in a door that's closing because he's righteous and he's judged for life and therefore this won't happen. We're not talking about an individual who's bad and therefore we say that no good would happen in his life. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the idea that in general, his life becomes a life worthy of living. And the evil person is living a life worthy of death. So when we judge for life, we continue in the path of living. It's exciting. The idea is that the reward for a mitzvah is another mitzvah. The reward for an Aveirah is another Aveirah. When we go along the path of life for doing good, we keep on seeing more good energy. We move ahead. It's fantastic. Nothing better than the idea of doing good and then feeling afterwards we need to do more good. There's a reward for doing good, which is good itself, and there is a reward, inverted commas, punishment, for bad, and that is that one puts oneself onto a path of bad itself. And so therefore, when we're involved in the path of good, everything is being judged in that path, that in the next year, we continue in the path of life. And when we do bad, we bring ourselves to a state of judgment that we continue in this direction too. So there are many ways of understanding the concept of being judged. And as we see it, how do we get into life itself? How do we get into death itself? What is life? What is death? There are many ways to understand it. I'm sure that you can come up with your own ideas. And please feel free to comment below with your own ideas. Think about it. What does it mean to you to have a life of life? That you'll be judged and put into the book of life? What does it mean to you if you're put into the book of death? Does it really mean death? Does it really mean life? You will live another year. You will die that year. Is that what it means? What does it mean to you? Please feel free to put your comments below. I'd be delighted to see how you see what the Rambam is teaching us. Let's learn some more. So the person who's found to be a tzaddik, he is judged and sealed for life. The one who is found to be a Rasha, he is sealed into the book of death. The Beinoni, and the middle guy, the average person, he is in abeyance, he is suspended, the judgment is withheld until Yom Kippur. If he does Teshuvah, if he did Teshuvah in that time, he gets sealed into the book of life. Ve'im love, if not, he is sealed in the book of death. Let's go one step further. Now, we're learning about, after this idea, we're moving on to the area of the shofar. What does the shofar represent for us? So at this point in time, we have learned about the importance of the value of a mitzvah, the value of an Aveirah, judgments, etc. Now it's time to get into Rosh Hashanah and to understand that this is a reality. Even though it is that the blowing of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, Gezeres HaKasuf, it is a scriptural decree. The Torah says, blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. We blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. It's a scriptural decree. Remes yeshbo, but there's a hint about it, meaning there's a sign, there's something deeper about the shofar other than the mitzvah itself. Klomar, and what is that? That is to say, Uru yeshedni mishnaschem, v'nirdomim hakitzu mitar demaschem. Awaken, you sleepers, from your sleep, and slumberers, awaken from your slumber. The shofar blows, dude, all of a sudden, a person gets a shock. Anybody who's been to a minyan in the early morning, meaning a male goes to shul and he's davening shachris, anyway, he's all caught up in his prayers and he's busy concentrating, and he's doing his tefillin up, he's doing his tefillin down, whatever he's doing. Of course, at the end of davening, they blow the shofar. Suddenly, boop, he gets a fright. The fellow jumps up. It's the shofar. Don't get such a fright. You knew, but I didn't realize. I was so busy concentrating on my tefillin, I didn't realize the noise. I got such a shock. That is what the shofar is supposed to do to us spiritually, inside ourselves. We should be not even aware that the shofar is about to blow, so to speak. Like we're concentrating on something else, and suddenly the Baal Tekiah blows. Boop! We get such a shock. We don't know what to do with ourselves. What is that? Yes, exactly. What is that? Awaken, O sleepers, from your sleep. It's time to wake up. The alarm is going off. It was a late night. Didn't sleep much last night. And you put your alarm on, and it doesn't just go beep, 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 beep. It doesn't do that. It makes a loud noise. Beep. Can you imagine the shock in the early morning It's like 2 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep, and you're just getting started with the sleep, but you had a late night. What could you do? You got to get up for work the next morning. There's an important meeting. Something's about to go down, and you need to be there. And the alarm goes off. Wow. It gives one such a shock. One doesn't know what to. Oh, it's the alarm! It's the alarm! Get out of bed! Why? You got to get to the airport. The plane is leaving in 5 hours. You better get there. You got to be early. You got to get on. What are we talking about? Is the bag packed properly? Is everything organized? What about breakfast? What? He's so confused. Yes, wake up and realize there are things that need to be done. That is what the shofar does to us. Now, what should the shofar do to us? It awakens us and says, when you hear the blast of the shofar, it says, search out your deeds. That is the voice of the shofar. That is the message. These are the words of the shofar. Let's give an example. A person is struggling with something in life. Something terrible happened. He begins or she begins to cry out emotionally. This is indeed the sound of the shofar, by the way, the crying. So you say to the person, what's wrong? What's the matter? Crying. What's the matter? What happened? Crying some more. Wake up. You need to wake up and realize the person who's crying is crying for good reason. Do you know that inside that cry is a whole story going on? Sometimes there are words there you don't even understand what the person's expressing. All they can do is to express everything in a sound and hope that in the expression that they do, that you will understand what it is that they're going through. And sometimes you don't have to know everything about it. You should be able to invent the story yourself to understand why this person is going through the pain that they're going through. Sure, we want to know what's going on. We want to try and heal it. We want to help. And sometimes we can't help. The pain is too great. So we see that on the surface, the person is crying, but we know nothing about why the person is crying. Well, wake up. Be sensitive if you can. Try. Empathize. What could be going through the minds of the person who seems to be crying? I'll tell you one thing. They're in pain. So how do I know that? Because they're crying. Or maybe it's tears of joy. You don't know the difference between tears of joy and crying. Can't you see? This person is crying. Tears of joy. There's a smile on the person's face, and yes, you see the tears coming down, but you can hear the laugh. You can see the expression. Can you see the difference? Sure. When the shofar blows, the same story happens. The shofar is telling us a message. What is the message? Check out your deeds. But you see, I can't tell you that in words. Nobody likes to be reprimanded. Check out what you did yesterday. Do you remember you stole that? Remember you spoke Lashon Hara? You broke Shabbos clearly. Remember you were eating that oyster? Tasty. Yes, sure. Good times. You know what you were up to. So the shofar says, listen, no go. Not interested. I'm not going to tell every single person exactly what it is that they did, but I'm so powerful, I could. I am a machine that could tell every single person in the shul everything that they did wrong, and hopefully they'd realize whether, but they wouldn't be interested, because you know when you reprimand people, they're not always interested in what you've got to say. So the shofar lets out the blast, and hidden inside the cry of the shofar, whether it's one long sound, whether it's 3 broken sounds, 9 broken, more up, whatever it is, the different cries. You know how people cry. Starts out, ooh, I'm so sad. It goes further. It's crying, it's in pain. And it's pain is coming through. Different types of pain. Be sensitive. Which is worse? I don't know. Why is he crying the long? Why is he crying the middle? Why is he crying the last one? Each one represents some sort of pain, some sort of emotion. The person in his head is thinking about all the pain he's going through. He can't express it to you. He hopes maybe you'll understand. And if you do understand and help him, it's fantastic without having to go into the details of the tremendous pain he's going through. He can't express it. But the shofar expresses it all in 1 sound, 2 sounds, 3 sounds. And our duty is to hear the sounds, because the shofar is telling us, start paying attention to all your deeds. Good deeds, for sure. See the good deeds, absolutely. And the bad deeds. Well, that, of course, is where we need to work on ourselves. And return and do repentance and remember your Creator. This is fantastic. This is not bad. When we hear the alarm going off in the morning, and it's telling us get up because you need to catch a plane in 5 hours, you can't get upset with the alarm. Yeah, you want to pick it up and throw it down and break it, whatnot. The alarm is doing good. It's doing nicely. It's telling you a message. Wake up. You've got things you need to do. Thank you, alarm. Thank you very much for waking up. I really appreciate this. Is not bad. This is not the Musar that destroys us. This is good Musar. I need the alarm to wake me up. It's important. I need to grow. I need to develop. I need to do the right thing in life. So when I hear the shofar blowing, I am feeling all the things about my life that I've gone through in the last year. When we listen to the shofar, there's nothing else going on. We're not praying. We're certainly not talking to others because we know we may not talk from the beginning of the blowing of the shofar till the end of the service. And therefore, when that blow comes out, it affords me the wonderful opportunity not just to go home at the end of the day and tell people, do you know who blew the shofar this year? It was Reuven so-and-so. He blew the shofar. Really? I heard he blows well. Yes, he certainly does. He's a very talented fellow, that. They say he blows the trumpet even better. What a musician. Beautiful. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a fellow who can blow. That when he blows, he gives you the opportunity to think about who you are. And indeed, therefore, when he is blowing, my duty as I listen is not to consider when I go out for lunch that day that I'm going to tell everybody how well Reuven blew the shofar this year. That's who we had blowing the shofar. He was terrific. Rather, my duty is, when I hear the shofar being blown, is to begin to consider life. I'm thinking about life. I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about everybody else. And as I hear the cry of the shofar coming out in the sobs, I realize this is a spiritual entity crying from the depths of its heart. And I think to myself, what is it crying about? It's crying for me. The tears are my own. But I need to understand what it is that I did wrong so that I can think about improving myself to do right. The shofar is extremely powerful. The laws that we're learning about in Teshuvah here from the Rambam, these are not laws that are wiping us out. They're not laws here to destroy us. They're laws to tell us how to improve ourselves, how to get ourselves right, and to know what's the right thing. It's fantastic. It's helping put us on the right path. It's not destroying us. It's not reprimanding us as if to destroy us and turn us into nothing. It's turning us into something by thinking about the real value of who we are. We are great. We are greater than who we are when we behave in a criminal manner towards ourselves or towards others. We are great. Now, we need to learn how to get to that greatness. The Rambam is telling us what to do. And the first step, we are fortunate enough on the day of Rosh Hashanah to hear the alarm clock going off. And it is awakening us from our sleep and telling us to start thinking about life seriously. Fantastic. Remember your Creator. These people who forget the truth, in the vanities of time, and they mess up basically their whole year. They're involved in all sorts of bad things. In vanity and emptiness. People spend their days passing the day by. What are we going to do now? Let's have breakfast. Great. What are we having? Let's have yogurt, some cereal, eggs. Let's have some ketchup with the eggs. That sounds good. What afterwards? Let's have a treat. Let's have one of these special pudding treats. This is exciting. And we discuss all the different things we can have for breakfast. Anyway, breakfast takes about an hour, and we just get started with the day. And by the way, when you finish breakfast, you must make certain to notify all the attendees that there'll be lunch served not so long afterwards. And what are we going to have for lunch? I have an idea. Let's have a nice, let's have a stew. What we put in it? Some peas, fantastic, some rice. How do you want the rice done? Should it be overdone or underdone? Some chips. Yes, let's have some potato chips. Fantastic. Sounds good. What else? Put some spice on. Which spice? Oh, fantastic. Anyway, you spend another half an hour thinking about lunch. When you get to lunch, of course, you go to the whole story again. And then you think about it for supper, for dinner. You do the same story again. The whole story takes place every day, 3 times a day. And then while you go through the day, you finish the breakfast and you're ready for the lunch. Meanwhile, you've got a couple of hours to spare and pass by. What will you do? Have a l'chaim maybe, and then go off to see a movie maybe, and then do some tiyul, go outside and just look around and enjoy the day. Who knows what? People waste their days achieving nothing, thinking about so many responsibilities, inverted commas, that they must attend to, that by the end of the year, what have they achieved? I'll tell you. Breakfast, lunch, and supper, they did a great job. They did some great tours around, looking around, look at the sky all day long and the beautiful flowers. And not that there's anything wrong. Enjoy looking at the flowers. Enjoy. There are times for this. But when we spend our entire day and days and weeks and months for the entire year immersed in vanities, not really achieving the things that we should be achieving in this world that we're here for, so then we got a problem. And therefore, these things are not going to help, and they're not going to save anybody of anything. Look into your souls. Wakey. And improve your ways. That's what counts. What are we becoming as people? Not what are we doing to satiate ourselves constantly and pass the day by. How are we improving ourselves? With ourselves to ourselves, with ourselves to God, with ourselves to other people? How are we working on ourselves? What are we achieving? Where are the goals? And all your deeds. And each one should leave his path, his evil path, and his thought, which is not good. This is what we need to work on. Therefore, every person needs that he should see himself the whole year, throughout the year, that every day, every moment, every second, we have to see ourselves that we're half meritorious and half obligated, half debit, half credit, half debit. Because of course, if we see ourselves this way, we put ourselves into the position of Beinoni. We're the middle guy. Well, if we're the middle fellow, we know that if we do good, we put ourselves onto the side of Tzaddik. We do bad, we go into Rasha. So it doesn't matter where we are at. The answer is always to see ourselves as Beinoni. Always be half-half, because then you'll always tend to good. What about when you do the good? You'll say, now I'm on the side of good. I'm okay. No. Now you're a Beinoni. So I'll do some good now. So you do good now, and you say to yourself, well, now I'm good. Say, no. Now you are, in fact, Beinoni. When will I get out of it? You never get out of it. We always have to see ourselves as Beinoni, that we can tip things onto the side of good, because if we don't, we'll never do the good. So too. The whole world is half meritorious and half on the side of debit. If we commit one sin, a person pulls himself over, weighs himself over onto the side of debit, and he pulls the whole world with him onto the scale of debit. And he causes for himself a sin. Destruction. He causes himself destruction. So when we do that Aveirot, since we were half-half, the moment you do that Aveirot, we pull ourselves onto the scale, the side of demerit, bad, and not only that, because we're affecting the whole world. Remember, each deed that we do, we're affecting the whole world. Each bad deed we do, we're affecting the whole world. We pull the whole world on. But if the whole world gets to the side of debit, the whole world's going to be destroyed, because that's what happened in the generation of Noah. So therefore, we see over here that our actions are affecting ourselves, and we need to think about that, and are affecting the entire world. We are like one unit together, like the body. So I'll say, the tongue enjoys the chocolate. I'm just going to have myself 20 slabs of chocolate. My tongue, it loves the taste of 20 slabs today. Hey, suddenly the body inside, all the organs are starting to talk. They start saying, hey, listen, if you give us all that sugar, we cause problems. We're not going to be able to tolerate all that. Hey, be quiet over there. You don't worry about the thing. I'm just attending to what I need to attend to. This is not true. We're affecting the whole world with our acts, with our words, with our thoughts. We're all tied up together in one big system. And therefore, we should be careful of everything that we do. Asa mitzvah chas. If we do one mitzvah, good news. He pulls himself onto the side of merit, onto the scale of merit, and he pulls the whole world with him. His good deed pulled everything over onto the side of merit. The garam lo velahem teshuvah, and he causes for himself and for them salvation. Vatzala, and another type of salvation. Shene'emar, how do we know that? Because the verse in Mishneh says, Tzaddik yesod olam, that the tzaddik is the foundation of the world, which means that when we do the good, we become the tzaddik. Why? Because we tilted ourselves over onto the side of merit, because we were Beinoni, and now we're tzaddikim. We turn ourselves onto the side, and once we go to the side of merit, we pull everybody else over. Tzaddik yesod olam. Once we do that, we become the entire foundation of the world, and the world exists for us and stands. We are the pillar, and the whole world is standing on our account. This person who did good, he pulls the whole world onto the side of good, he saves the whole world. On account of this, all the people, all the house of Israel are accustomed that they increase in tzedakah over maasim tovim and good deeds. And they occupy themselves in doing mitzvahs all the way from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur. Yeser mikol hashana, more so than they would do throughout the entire year. And that is why this time is very special. Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, exceptionally special, because we have the opportunity now to engage in like a bomb. We got like a bomb of mitzvahs and good deeds. We're exploding out there. And so the Jewish people in particular, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, engage in extra mitzvah observance, extra Torah study, much more Teshuvah. We're really, really engaged in this process. We want to pull everything over onto the side of good. And interestingly enough, they are accustomed, everybody's accustomed to awaken at night, to get up early in the night time. But asara yamim elu, in these 10 days, and there are different customs, of course. Everybody to each community, they do what they do. As we know, we do the slichot, etc., etc. They daven in shul, b'divrei tachanunim, in words of supplication, or b'kibushim, and really asking Hashem for help, really overwhelming type of words that pull us over. Until daylight. This, of course, is a very special time. The evening from midnight on towards the daylight is already the time when chesed comes into the world. Kindness comes into the world. In the early evening, it's din. Everything is judgment. That's why things are scary at nighttime. Everything, the forces of evil are awakening in the early evening. But from midnight onwards, everything turns around and there's chesed, there's kindness that's brought into the world. And that's why the sun comes up, because the sun is the light, and that, of course, is the kindness coming up into the world. And so therefore we pray at this point in time, because it's a time of divine kindness, and therefore we want to hook in to the special time of kindness to draw down kindness to ourselves as well. It's a special time to daven. Of course, every day of the year at this time is a special time to daven. But for those who can't manage it, certainly the period of time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is a very special time to make sure that one gets up early and says the extra prayers and prepares for the big day, of course, which is Yom Kippur, which is the ultimate day of forgiveness, which we go through once a year. We've covered quite a lot of ground today, some exciting material here. We're going to pursue it even more as we explore deeper into this chapter, and we see how we need to work on ourselves and the changes that we make into ourselves having an effect on ourselves and on others as well, and what we're doing to change the world for good, basically. Healing the world, repairing ourselves. That is what we're after. It's so important. Life is really serious, even though we enjoy life and we can be light-hearted. But nevertheless, Life is a serious thing. We're here to grow, to develop, and improve ourselves and repair our souls, ultimately, to be where they should be in terms of the full, mysterious path that Hashem has made for us to go through until the perfection of this world reaches its ultimate stage. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Eliyahu Sher from Chesed Ve'emet. My website is www.lovingkindness.co. Please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't already by clicking on the subscribe button. And if you have enjoyed this video, got something out of it, even one thing, isn't that what we're learning about over here? One thing can make the difference. One good deed makes a difference. If something I've said that's one good thing, click the like button, say, yes, it was great. Thank you very much. Boom, I give you a thumbs up. Thank you very much. If you feel you'd like to contribute a comment, question, insight, please do so below. Positive comments only, of course. I'm looking for positive energy here. I'm not interested in people filled with negative energy and criticism against certain things that might be said. If you have a query, please do query and question it, and we can discuss that together as well. I look forward to, and don't forget, of course, to also click on the bell button to be notified. There's a little bell underneath this YouTube video. Please do click on it to be notified of future shiurim. And for those of you who can assist ourselves in our activities in spreading Torah and the other activities that we're involved in, please do support us in some way. You can do so via my website, which you will see over there. There are a variety of ways you can contribute. Or alternatively, my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Eliyahu Sher, and just give through whatever you're able to do. Even $1 a month can really make a difference to me. And so please come through and support us, and in turn, we'll be able to give more to you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me via my email, and we can get together. We can discuss them in person, discuss them on email, whatever you'd like to do. Let's be in touch and create wonderful relationships with each other. I look forward to another shiur with you in the near future, and I wish you everything of the best, and take care. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.